you put on some jeans, maybe straight out of the dryer, and they're tight. And what do? You squat down in them, you stretch them out, right? You like stretch them so that then they feel like they fit. Like, so that's what you have to do with like your own personal capacity for things.
Hello, friends. This is Susan Shull, your host for the Clean Heart Club podcast. I'm a farm wife, mom, Grammy, holy yoga teacher, and Christian life coach. Clean Heart Club is the place for you if you want to learn to live in abundance and walk in freedom to be 100% your true self. I can't wait to share with you guided meditations and sacred story interviews with some of my favorite people. Wherever you are on your path, I'm excited to join hands as we allow our loving Heavenly Father to clean up our hearts and we start living the adventure of our lives with joy and gratitude. This is going to be fun. Hello, Clean Heart Club podcast listeners. It's so good to see you today and introduce you to yet another amazing, inspiring person. I'm just so thankful that God has brought all these women into my life and that I get to talk to them and share our conversations with you. So I'm just delighted to introduce you to my friend Jeni Coppage today. Jeni, welcome to the Clean Heart Club podcast. Tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Well, I am Jeni Coppage. I'm a certified nutrition and life coach. I live on the beautiful coast of Georgia. I'm married. I have 3 adult children, and I love all things health and wellness and mindset work. So I love working with women to create not just a healthy body, but a healthy mind, and therefore creating just a really healthy, happy life for them.
So we have a lot of the similar interests, and Jeni and I were actually in the same coaching cohort group in Life Mentoring School, and we became friends then, and since then have gone on a couple of retreats together. And have you gone to more than one Love is Magic?
I've been to everyone except last year.
Okay, so we've done that together too, and we're going to be together again in June in person, and I'm so excited. Jeni, I think you are just the cutest thing ever.
So sweet. So sweet.
Well, I believe that it's true. Okay, so we want to get into a lot of different topics today, but let's start out, first of all, with tell us a little bit about your nutrition coaching and your faster. What are you up to these days?
Well, I have always been into health and wellness, right? I started out as an active little kid and all sorts of sports. And just the other day, I was talking to my husband about how I was on a boys basketball team in 5th grade because back in 1985, there were no girls basketball, leagues for 5th graders. So, I've just always been really active and tried to eat really healthy. I wouldn't say really healthy, that might be a stretch, but I tried to be healthy with my food as much as you could in the 90s and early 2000s with what was considered healthy back then. And in about 2014, I think it was, I did my first round of Whole30, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. And if you haven't, it's just really a whole foods based way of eating for 30 days, eliminating a lot of like processed and inflammatory foods. And that turned me on to now it's called just like real nutrition and what's really healthy, right? Food that that God made for us and provided for us. Does it come from the ground? Does it have a mother? Is a great way of, deciphering should you eat it or not? And so for, I guess, about 5 years, I was focusing just on improving my diet slowly but surely. I've always worked out as an adult. I took all that athletic, sports related things as a kid and just parlayed it into just staying active as an adult in different ways. And then in 2019, I learned about macros and I was following different people on Instagram.
Explain to our listeners what a macro is, because some people don't know.
They hear that term and they're like, what does that really mean? Is that just another diet? And when you say that, counting macros is counting your macronutrients, so your carbs, your fats, and your proteins. And instead of, most people think of just counting calories, like calories in, calories out. But really, it's really important to get the right amount and the right balance of foods, of your carbs, your carbohydrates, which are not bad. That's our main source of fuel. We want carbohydrates in our body. And then fats and protein. So, your meats and dairy products like that for protein. And then we all love some good fats. So I was interested in that and was on Instagram and came across this program called Faster Way to Fat Loss. And as I was looking at it and finding out more information, one of my best friends from high school messaged me and said, or no, she just did a post, who wants to do the Faster Way to Fat Loss with me? And I was like, I just found this. So we signed up together. And I knew right away I would love to coach this program because it was just so solidly based, scientific. They paired it with great workouts, carb cycling, intermittent fasting, like all these different, almost like buzzwords, but these different practices for your health. And it just all made sense and it clicked with me. So within a few months, I was certified as a coach. And it's not just sign up and pay amount of money. You actually go through testing and, you spend a lot of time reading and going through education. And so
it was not just a
right. It wasn't like,
a
you signed up and now you
blow off
no, you
certification.
have to know your stuff. And so that was in June of 2019. And I started running what we call rounds of the Faster Way. And then in September of 2019, I had been following Dr. Edie Wadsworth since 2008. And she opened up her life mentoring school in September of 2019. And so I joined that. And within a few months, I just knew, I'm like, your physical wellness and your mental wellness go hand in hand. And I just really fell in love with life coaching. And I started working for the woman that coached me, Amberly Devers, in the Faster Way. I started working for her when I became a coach and helping her run. She had, a huge community of women that she was leading. And I just love to encourage them and help work with them on their mindset aspect. So when Dr. Edie offered the opportunity for Christian life coach certification, I jumped on it. And so I have kind of pivoted away from running Faster Way rounds. I maybe do one or two a year, but I'm mostly focusing on working with women one-on-one. And I've created a smaller 45-day program called LiveWell 45, where it's a habit building program to get to increase your capacity to have daily habits that lead to a healthy lifestyle. So that is, I love coaching.
I love that. Okay. So I know from our previous conversations that you didn't join this Faster Way program because you had 30 pounds to lose.
No. Yes.
So I think that's important to know too. It's not just about losing weight and looking better in your swimsuit.
Right. It is about being healthy. I've gone on to get another nutrition certification through Precision Nutrition, and a little bit more in depth than Faster Way, a lot more in depth actually. But when I was going through it, I was so happy to see that what this deep dive and all the science behind it was exactly what we're teaching in Faster Way. So the program is just very sound. And it is about not so much losing weight, but getting healthy, getting strong, building muscle, and you will burn fat. And one thing that women really struggle to realize is that it takes time. We want it to happen, so quickly, but it takes time. And that's where the mindset aspect comes into play when it comes to, not just losing weight, but to getting healthy.
I had a client a few years ago who was debating whether or not to have weight loss surgery. And we coached extensively around her mindset, around food and eating and processing emotions. And we really are an integrated person. We're not just a body. We're so much more. And I just 100% agree. It all has to fit together, and it can. And it's important for our health, but also I think we are God's daughters, and he has he's inviting us to do things with him here on the earth. And if we're sick, we can't do it. So it's really important that we get well,
It is so important.
physically, mentally.
I think, as Christian women, we are kind of like told to, like, don't put yourself first, not directly, but, we're caregivers, and it's almost like prideful to put yourself first. But I disagree with that, because you can't carry out God's calling on your life if you're not in a healthy body. If you're sick, if you don't have the energy, right? How many women day in, day out, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I don't have the energy for that, I can't handle, even the mental capacity to handle one more thing. And that's not the life God's called us to. But if you put in some effort, and it doesn't need to, happen overnight, and that's what I do with my Live Well 45 challenge. It's like making small little incremental changes, adding small little things that, when certain things become the norm, you really expand your capacity of what you're capable of. So many of us just don't have the belief that we can eat healthy, that we can make healthy choices, that we can move our body for 30 minutes a day. We don't have any evidence that we've been consistent with it, so we default to, oh, I can't do that, or that's just not for me, or something I just heard recently, and I've heard it several times, so it just came to my mind, like, oh, my family, we're just not active people. My parents weren't active. I'm not active. My kid, and it's like, I'm always like, but you can be the change. You can be the change for your family. No one in my family was, a health nut, or, a workout person or anything. And I've decided, like, I'm going to be the change in that aspect for my family. And I see it in my kids. All three of my kids are active. And they call me and they send
I
me
love
pretty
that.
selfies, and, they, call me for advice and encouragement. And I love it. I love to share that with them.
You mentioned building capacity, and I don't know about you, but one of the things that I've learned through being coached and through coaching other people is that the way to build capacity is by challenging yourself.
Yeah.
And
I kind
of learning to keep promises to yourself.
Yeah. I kind of think of it too as like, you put on some jeans, maybe straight out of the dryer, and they're tight. And what do? You squat down in them, you stretch them out, right? You like stretch them so that then they feel like they fit. Like, so that's what you have to do with like your own personal capacity for things. Like, you have to kind of stretch yourself. And that's like in my 45-day, not to keep bringing it up, but in my 45-day challenge, it's like, yeah, you're going to do a lot of stuff for 45 days. But when you can do that for just 45 days, like there is an end in sight, you're going to walk away from that with the belief like, oh, it's one of the things we do is move our bodies. We take one intentional day off a week for rest, because I think that's important. But you move your body for 45 minutes, 6 days a week. Well, after you've done that for 6 weeks, you're like, oh, well, 30 minutes doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? You've stretched your capacity for a shorter period of time. So moving for 20 or 30 minutes a day seems so much more doable, and it fits into your lifestyle. We journal every day, and it's like, oh, when you journal for 6 days a week, then if you just journal 3 or 4 days a week, you feel like it can fit into your life. You don't have to do, we often mistake consistency for perfection. And that's not the case too. Like, you think, oh, if I'm consistent at something, then I do it every single day. When it comes to our health and our wellness and most things in life, it doesn't have to be every single day. You will burn yourself out every single day. Life happens to us. And you don't, some days you just don't have time for it. And that's okay. But what happens is and that's why, like, I would encourage people, like, whatever your journey is, like, maybe for a short period of time, do it every day. But I think there's something powerful in learning to take a day off. And that's part of the program too. Like taking a rest day. God told us to take a day of rest. That's part of the program too. He knew we couldn't do everything, all the things every single day of our life. It's not.
So good. And after you do it for 45 days, you may learn, oh, I feel better. I actually like this.
I actually like it.
Yeah.
Like, I know I was just talking to a client who did my program, and she was like, I'm still, like, we read 7 pages a day. And she's like, I've kept that up. Like, I love it. Like a 7 pages a day of like a personal development book. she really enjoys that. And so she just has
And before you know it, you've read a whole bunch of
a whole
books.
bunch of books. And you realize it doesn't take a lot of effort to make a lot of progress.
Yes. And you've made a choice that moves you forward instead of choices that keep you stuck. Like
Scrolling, one thing,
the,
so many people say,
yes.
I mean, y'all, I'm paying attention. I'm guilty of it myself. I love to scroll on Instagram. I just, just be inspired by people, catch up with people. There's just, there's funny things. I can get sucked in. But when I find myself saying, oh, I don't have time for that, then I can look at my screen time and be like, oh, well, it's saying something a lot different. Like I do have time for it, and that's what you realize. Like,
Yes.
it's so easy to think, I don't have time to sit down and journal every day. Well, I bet you your phone would tell otherwise. The amount of time you've spent on your phone looking at randomness, you probably do have time. We think, I know I've been guilty of, I don't have time to read. I do have time to read. I'm just choosing not to make time to
Yes.
read.
Yes. Choosing to use your time in a way that you have nothing to show for it. That's me.
Yeah.
So often. I don't want to do that anymore. I had resisted TikTok for a really long time, but around November, I downloaded it, and oh my goodness, I was sucked into that
There's something.
in the drop of a hat.
I have a TikTok account. I know I love seeing you on TikTok. You post. I've not posted anything on there, but I got TikTok because my daughters who are in college would send me a TikTok to watch. And I'm like, well, I can't watch this. They're like, download the app. And hours of your life can just be sucked away.
Yes. I had to delete it off my phone because it was just it became like a pacifier.
It's something.
And I wasn't watching anything bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was being inspired. I was learning things and all that, but I wasn't doing things. I was sitting there watching other people do things. So,
yeah. And that's like, you have to think, like, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to sit around and scroll? And there's something really, I would love to see, maybe someone's out there doing a study as we speak on like why TikTok is so, inviting versus Instagram, like why you feel that like being sucked into TikTok that I don't feel on Instagram. It's just,
I'm the same.
It's very interesting.
There's something about it.
Yeah.
So, reminder that we have free will and we have choices that we can make, and our choices have consequences.
Yes.
Okay, before we get into some faith stuff and some more girly kind of stuff that I want to talk to you about, I know you built some capacity this winter and you did a challenge. I would love for you to tell our listeners about that.
Yes. So it's funny you say winter. I'm down here in South Georgia. I'm like, that winter? Like, we don't have winter. I felt like we didn't have much of a winter, although it did snow, but that was just for a few days. But besides that, it was pretty mild. So, yes.
When we were supposed to be together, I do believe.
Yes. So.
Or was that the hurricane?
No, we got, yes.
I think
we got.
Yeah, that was the hurricane.
Our trip got derailed by a hurricane. We have all the weather fun down here. So yes, in late October, my husband's sister and her husband were visiting from Colorado, and he is a retired Special Forces Army guy, Green Beret, and he said, hey, I'm putting a team together, and we're going to do the Baton Memorial Death March. And I was like, what's that? And he said, it's a 26.2 mile hike through White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. Do you want to join us? And I just said, yes. Why not? As one would. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a runner. I walk occasionally, I walk a few times a week, 3 miles around my neighborhood. There's a loop in my neighborhood. That's, the extent. I don't hike. I grew up in Florida and I live on South Georgia. Like, I have no desire to go in the woods here. There's snakes and bobcats and panthers and alligators. And yeah, I'm not super outdoorsy from that standpoint. So, but I just said yes. And a month later, he had us signed up. And that was in the beginning of December. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner until January. And I was like, oh my goodness, a week into January, I'm like, in like 2.5 months, I'm supposed to like 26.2 miles in New Mexico. And by this point, my brother-in-law had said, hey, you need to, make sure you're really conditioned because, the altitude's a lot higher here. It's about 4,500 feet to 5,000 feet. And I live at 18 feet. My house is 18 feet above sea level. So he's like, you need to keep that in mind. And it's up, there's a lot of uphill. And I live where it's completely flat. You have to drive a few hours before you find actual hills to walk up. So I had to be really intentional about training for this. And in that process, like the whole month of January, my brain just kept saying, you can't do this. You need to quit. You need to back out. He still has plenty of time to find someone else for the team. You can't do this. You can't do this. But then there was a part of me that, that part of me that instantly said yes without hesitation, that I'm like, no, this is going to challenge me. This is going to, this just makes for a more interesting life, right? When I sit down with my grandkids, I can tell them how I hiked 26 miles when I was, 50, just turned 51 years old, versus I sat around and scrolled Instagram all day long. Like, what story do I want to write?
Let Grandma tell you about the olden days when she scrolled Instagram.
Like,
for hours every day.
I want to be really intentional about living in an interesting life, and to have an interesting life, you have to do interesting things, and most interesting things require you to get out of your comfort zone. So I had to.
And that, my friends, is a fabulous quote. Thank you.
I don't remember exactly how
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We'll rewind and remember that. So I came up with a training plan, and literally through the whole process of training for this, up until mile 20 on the actual day during the actual race hike event, I did not think I was going to be able to finish. I don't know why. The part of our brain that is wired to keep us safe and to avoid danger was just the loudest voice in my head. You can't do it. You're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to pass out from, and I just had to I had to life coach myself and be really mindful of the thoughts I was thinking, and having to just say, no, hush up. I'm not going to listen to you. I can do this. Everything from, I used to say, I can't walk on the treadmill for an hour. And I had to do a lot of training on my treadmill to get the elevation, because like I said, there's no uphill roads around here. There is one big bridge, but that's kind of dangerous, with cars and people not paying attention. So I chose not to walk on that. So I just had to really become just strong in my conviction that I'm going to keep my word to myself. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, even when I don't feel like doing it. And it was a day in, day out process. Very few days did I want to get up and, there were plenty of days where I just was like, oh, I'm going to walk 5 or 6 miles. But, there was a lot of days that it's, 10, 15, 20 miles. I did one 20-mile day about 3 weeks before. Lots of 12 and 13-mile days. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, you just have to learn to persevere and set aside the time, say no to things. It was during like the flu season, stomach bug was going around the community. So I wasn't, I was like, you want to go out to eat? No. Going to the store when it was less crowded, just to make sure I didn't get sick. I had to be really mindful of keeping myself healthy and, just in the best conditions so that I could complete the task. And, one of the things I learned through the training process is that so often, especially on the days when I knew I was going to do a lot of miles, say 10 or more miles, that first mile, almost without fail, I'd be like, I can't do this. I feel awful. My body aches, my hips hurting, just that. And then a mile and a half in, I'm like, oh, I feel good. 5 miles in, I'm like, yeah, let's bump up the speed. Let's bump up the incline. It was just so interesting to see how that brain of ours and our body, our body's responding to, hey, you were just in bed 20 minutes ago and now you're having us on this treadmill moving. Really,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, stop. This is dangerous. But it just is a reminder, like, anytime we're starting out, especially once the newness wears off and the excitement and the ambition about things, like,
Mhm.
it doesn't always feel good. But if you just keep going, you keep persevering, you just do what you say you're going to do, you get into a groove and you can settle in and it doesn't feel so bad.
There's something about being in the messy middle
Yes.
of whatever you're trying to do that shows you what you're
Yeah.
what you're made of.
And it's where you grow. And that's where, like, now I can look back with such, I don't want to say pride, but like and with just the knowledge, like, oh, I can do it.
Satisfaction.
Yes, satisfaction. Just the satisfaction. Like, I do keep my word to myself. And then I'm carrying it on to like other things. Like, oh, things don't seem as daunting to me. Like, even if I find myself going, oh, I couldn't do that, I'm like, actually, yes, I could. If I can basically in 2.5 months get my body to a place where I can, hike for 26.2 miles, then I can, not enjoy some sweet treats. And I can,
Yes.
do whatever the next goal is going to be. It just
Oh,
it
I love it.
increases
So
your belief in yourself. And I think so many women are
yes,
struggling to just have belief in themselves, even for the smallest things. You don't have to go and do a
they
26.2 mile
right.
hike. Like I've said, we talked about this. I'm like, just flossing your teeth can create a lot of belief in yourself because so often we won't even show up every day for something little. Flossing your teeth takes 60 to 75 seconds. That was one of my first goals that I did in LMS. And it really created a lot of belief. Like, yeah, it's so simple. Why wasn't I always doing this? Why did I think, I didn't have 60 seconds of my day to floss my teeth a little bit?
And now they on the teeth flossing thing, now they have those pick
That's
things. It's so
so
easy.
easy.
You don't even have to use two
That's
hands.
exactly
You
I have a little jar in my I have a next to my sink. I have the drawer where I keep my hand towels, the kitchen towels, and I have
can,
a little jar of those little toothpick, like the teeth flosser sticks in there. So
uh-huh.
after I clean up the kitchen, a lot of times I'll just floss my teeth right there, throw it away, wash my hands, and I'm not going to eat anymore. And I floss my teeth.
Yeah, so you're done. I love it. So learning to trust ourselves
Yeah.
is so important.
And one of the best ways to build that to trust is to do something that kind of scares you a little bit. And it's going to be different for everybody. Everyone's,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do something big or grand, but just find something like that you don't think that maybe there's a little bit of doubt. There's maybe a little bit of you that's like, yeah, it gets you excited, but then that brain, just know that your brain's going to be like, no, you can't do it. You can't.
Yes, just
Just
expect that. And I don't know if you're like me, but I say yes to a lot of things. And then in the middle or at the beginning of the middle, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? But at the end of it, after it's done, I'm always glad I did it.
It's always the best thing. And I just love it. That's happened to me so many times. And it's so interesting because God uses other people to call us into something. And we're like, yes, that sounds like fun. And then you're like, when you're preparing for it or whatever, you're about to do it, you're like, I can't. That's your brain just trying to protect you. And like you said, Susan, if you're just prepared for it, you're just, instead of going, oh no, I really should not do this, you can say, oh yeah, there you are, brain. Of course, I was waiting for you to tell me I couldn't or I shouldn't, and it's just part of the process. But it's always,
Here's the part where my brain pitches a fit.
yes, always pitching a fit. But you feel so good. Even if it doesn't go well, you still feel so good after you do something that scares you a little.
Yes, at least you tried. At least you
Yeah.
tried. Okay, so I know that you're a believer, and Jenny's actually been in our Thursday morning Bible study have you been in it for like three rounds, 4 rounds?
Yes, this 4 rounds.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, and by the way, if you are listening to this and you want to be in our Bible study, you just need to message me because we would love to have you. And so Jenny's gone from being a participant to now being one of our teachers.
Yes, I teach on Thursday.
And Yes, you're teaching on Thursday, and we're studying James. So I would love to know what are you learning about James? And we didn't really talk about this, so I hope it's okay for me to ask you.
Well, James, okay, I just was earlier today, I was preparing for my thing. So, James, I'm going over James chapter 3, and it is about our tongue. Yeah, I know. I was like kind of convicted. I was like, oh my goodness. And just the power of the tongue, like you can speak life and death with our words. And just to be really, really mindful of how much power. I just think back, um, when we were little and kids with, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And I'm like, that is
What a lie.
it's such a lie. And I don't think I did do some research on that because I was like, and I forget exactly what it says now because it was a couple weeks ago that I looked it up. I don't think that was the intention of it. It was, I'm being very good at explaining this, but
Yeah.
but how we interpret it, like when I was a kid, like somebody would say something mean, and I remember sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me, and it's the exact opposite. Words do hurt, and they can leave a really lasting wound on a person, and we have to be mindful of that, mindful of the words that we speak, and also the words that we've had wound us and that that's not from God, and that we can release it and not let it dictate the rest of our lives. And that's something in coaching women in their health and wellness, one thing I've heard time and time again is that, oh, I'm just not athletic. Oh, I just never thought of myself as someone that moves their body. And when I ask why, Susan, you would be so surprised how many women, grown women, 40, 50, 60 years old, bring up elementary school PE recess.
PE. Yeah.
It's actually, it goes back to that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And they're still wounded. They still have a belief about themselves based on words said so many decades prior, you know?
I was somebody who always said, I'm not competitive. If you want to win, go for it. I don't care. It doesn't. But now that I've started playing pickleball,
Oh, are you?
I've discovered I do have a little competitive streak. And
Because
it is fun to
when
win.
when we say we're not competitive, we can protect ourselves from the pain of not winning.
Of losing. So it's just it's a
Defense mechanism almost.
defense mechanism for sure. And I'm thinking about in PE, hopefully PE teachers still don't do this, but letting kids pick their teams. And it was always the same person pick last. And so that poor person had a heart stabbing every single day.
That's what women have told me. Like I was never chosen. And so even so that just like for them sealed the belief in themselves that they're not athletic. They're not good at moving their body. They can't trust their body, or they just don't have the confidence to get up and go to a workout class with other people. It just brings, it's almost like that shame that they felt as a child is still there with them as they grow.
Comes back. So I'm a lot older than you. And when Brady was a baby, we lived in Ohio, and I can't remember if it was a Y or someplace, they had aerobics, and that Jane Fonda was, she was everywhere. And so I went to aerobics, and that was the first exercise class that I went to. I loved it. And then I started going to jazzercise when we moved back here. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. And that was the first time that I really realized that you could it didn't just have to be a team sport as a way to have fun and move your body.
I had that same experience but with cycling, like the spin classes. I joined a gym, and I remember going, my older daughter, Catherine, was a baby. So I dropped my son off at school and went to the gym with her. And I was, walking on the treadmill and doing a few machines, but there was always this room with glass door and glass windows and all, there was probably 15 bikes, stationary bikes in there. People would pile in, and within minutes, the window was fogged up and they came out looking like they just went to war. And I was like, and then after you go and you meet some other moms and they were like, you need to come try it. It's called cycling or spin class or whatever. And so I did, and I was hooked. I was hooked. And that,
Love
yeah.
it. Love it. Okay, so we kind of got off our faith thing, talking about the tongue. So how does your faith affect your life or impact your life? Is it like over here and the rest of your life's here, or how's that work for you?
I would say it's pretty mixed. I try to, it's a part of my daily life. I mean, I am behind on my Bible reading right now, but
Are you doing the Bible recap?
I am not. So last year, I read through the Bible. I'm in CJ's, our friend CJ's Sacred Treasures community, and so
Yes,
we read through the whole Bible last year, and that was my first time doing it with reading through the whole Bible in a year. And so this year I've decided to read through the New Testament 4 times. So like every 90 days. So I still haven't finished the first 90 days. I did. And part of that, and this week I've had to regroup with my goals and my expectations for myself, because last year when I was reading through the Bible, we were doing it through the Bible app. And so I would wake up in the morning. I have one of those red light therapy masks that make you look like I have one of those. So I put my red light therapy mask, put my AirPods in, and I would listen to that day's Bible reading. And after my eyes adjusted to the red light, I would, read it on my phone and listen at the same time. I feel like that really made me, understand it, especially the Old Testament with all those names that no one can pronounce. It was really good. Well, then this year I decided I'm going to actually just read the actual Bible. Well, something I learned really quickly is that my eyes don't focus very well, even with my glasses on, at 6 a.m. Like I need way too much. And so then I got to where I was putting it off until like after I'd kind of woken up and the sun was out and I could, be out in the living room with I now understand why they have those large print Bibles. Cause even in my Bible, even with my glasses on, I'm like, gosh, are my glasses not working? What? This is small. And so I kind of got behind, and for some reason I tried to make it like, oh, doing it on your phone isn't as good. And I was like, you know what? That's a lie. Because when I tell myself that story, I'm behind. I'm not getting it done every day because it's like my day's getting away from me. So I'm going back, and this morning I'm back to listening to it just on my phone because like sometimes we can set goals for ourselves that are lofty and what we really want, but if it's not fitting in your day-to-day life and it's just not working for you and it's becoming more of a chore, and I definitely don't want reading God's word to feel like a chore to me, then it's time to pivot. And yes, it's okay. It's not that I'm failing. I'm still gonna, read through it, and it's okay to be behind too.
Yes, it's okay to be behind, and it's okay to adjust our goals. I love that.
Yeah.
So if you're the mom of young adults.
Yes, kind of young.
So
1 through 28.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So we're the moms of adults. Mm-hmm. What do you wish that your kids knew about? And maybe your kids are walking fully with the Lord. I hope they are. But what wisdom could you impart to young people about your faith? Why is it important?
I will say, I wish all 3 of my kids had a stronger, faith walk right now. No one has turned from the faith. It's just fitting it into your life and, making it a priority. Mm-hmm. And I get, when you're a young adult, like finding your place in life in general can be really hard. But I think having, a faith community to be a part of in whatever way that looks like is so important, and to be intentionally growing faith. Maybe you're having trouble finding a church, or you're having trouble finding a Bible study, but your faith can be your own as well. That doesn't mean, you don't need to be a part of something to be growing, in your faith and growing in your relationship with Christ. It is up to you, and whatever that needs to look like in every season of your life is okay. God knows your heart and is just yearning to draw closer to you and for you to draw closer to him.
So good. So good. I like that. That will help somebody, I think, Jeni. Thank you. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about clothes. So Jeni and I went to get our colors done, and we turned out that we were the same color family. We're both Summers, according to House of Color. And even though she's lightheaded, but you have those dark eyes, and I'm dark-headed, but I have, you can't really say, but they're like blue-green eyes. So I think that's, and our skin tone is not that far off. I mean, you're more fair than me, but I think that's probably why we match the same, both cool colors, right?
Yes. Yes, in House of Colors, they said, you're either, I think the first thing they do is determine whether you have a warm skin tone or a cool skin tone. And a way that people at home can just, decide that for themselves is to look at your veins. And do they appear blue or do they appear green? And if they're blue under your skin, you are most probably a cool tone, which would be a summer or a winter. If your veins appear green under your skin, then you are a warm tone, so an autumn or a spring.
So how has knowing your colors, how has that affected what you bought this year?
Well, sometimes it's like, it's one of the, when we had that done, I guess that was like a year and a half, it'll be 2 years ago this summer, when the colors was like lavender. And I was like, I just never would have thought lavender. I said, but I have this lavender blazer, and every time I wear it, people are like, oh, you look so good in that. Like, that is just like, looks beautiful on you. And so since then, lavender has kind of been an it color. Like, it's, out in, in the different stores and stuff. And so that's been fun whenever, your color is kind of available. But then whenever you go into the fall and you're a spring, and there are like jewel tones and, some burgundies and teals and darker colors. There's, all the different tones in every color, every season rather. So it's just, it's interesting to just, you can't just, oh, I like that because I like that. It's like, I will look at something and be like, oh, I love that dress, but I know it's not going to look the best on me. Mm-hmm. And so, well, sometimes I find myself a little bit frustrated because I'm no longer just shopping for what I'm like. I'm shopping for what I like that will look good on me. And so, but it's so worth it because I feel like I'm a lot more intentional about what I buy. And then when I buy it and I do look good in it, and it's like showing off my features and my skin tone the best, I'm so much happier with the purchase. I still have some things in my, I still will wear black. Like, newsflash, the only season that really does look good in black is winters, which is a cool tone. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm still a cool tone. So it kind of, I'm not like a spring trying to wear black, but you do notice it. Like, you do notice it doesn't look as good on you. Once you, like I tell people, I'm like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But my daughters, well, one has since graduated, but the younger one still is at the University of Georgia. So our colors are red and black. And so I still do wear black when I'm in Athens.
Yeah. They're not the boss of you totally. Exactly. I get it. And I can remember when you came around the corner after you had been to get yours done and you had on the lip color that she suggested for you. We were all like, oh my gosh, Jeni, that looks so good. Yes. It really does matter.
It does matter. Color matters. And I think we kind of live in a world. Prior to that, I was like, I always bought everything in black. Why? Because it just felt safe. You know,
Oh,
I am like more, I'm the person, I don't like to keep up with trends. I'm more like, let me just buy something. I want it to like stay in style for a long, a long time. You wouldn't know that by this, bright kind of pattern shirt.
that's a really cute
Uh,
shirt. Where did you
this
find
is
that, by the way?
lost from a few years ago, but it is perfect for
I
spring.
like that.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and it was funny because Lacey, who lives right there in Maryville, Tennessee, where we have our Love is Magic conference, I remember her asking me, she's like, "So you wear black all the time? Do you get lots of compliments?" And I said, "No." Like, exactly. And it's so funny because now I can kind of I can kind of tell what season someone is, especially if they're a summer. Like I can kind of tell, and I can see if someone is wearing black and like they're a summer. I'm like, if you were just in navy, you would look so much just, I don't want to say better, as in like it would just shine on you, would just shine differently.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. I think you're actually gifted in this, being able to tell the difference, because I still am a little confused and I can't always tell. But when I got my colors done again here recently, she said I was they use a different
Right.
like format or whatever, that I was a clear, which actually corresponds to winter.
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about that because those are kind of like opposites, but not really. And I kind of remember that when I was told I was winter the first time, that the lady told me you could really wear both summer and
Yes.
winter.
And even when I got it
So,
done, like Lacey told me with House of Colors, she told me, I'm a brown summer. So she said there are like, you will kind of cross over into some of the other seasons. And like, I was reading here that like, I do look better in silver jewelry than like a bright like gold. But like I could get away with like a more champagne color gold. So like a lighter, not as gold. So yeah, and then
uh-huh.
ultimately like these are just, they're not, the law.
Yeah, they're
But I think it is
right. They're just
important to be aware
suggestions.
of, like, especially if you're going to present to people or you want to make a good first impression, like it does make a difference. When they start draping those colors on and you can just see it, like, oh my goodness, like that color on me versus another color. And it's also really interesting. I had this green shirt that I actually wore on, I gave a talk in life mentoring school during Coaches Week, so you can find it in on the in the membership portal. And I wore this green, um, like cashmere, like short sleeve sweater shirt, and people would always make a comment, but they would say, "Oh, I like your shirt. I like that shirt. I like that shirt." Versus when I wear a color that actually looks good at me, people say, "Oh, you look good in that."
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fascinating. And that's one of the things she said. You want people to not to notice, to look at you and notice your outfit, but to notice you in the outfit. That's a sign that it's more flattering to you.
yes.
So good. Okay, so where do you like to shop?
I love J. Crew is usually my go-to. Um, I also love, because of health and wellness, I'm in a lot of workout clothes. I love Athleta and Lululemon, but I love J. Crew. There's a new store. It's new we have one. I live in South Georgia, but we're close to the state line. So I go shopping in Jacksonville. There is a store called Every,
Okay.
and it is, um,
Oh.
I would say it's for like middle-aged women, like almost like hip, cooler clothes. They help you style. They've got some really great
Mhm.
fun things. And I love the women in there. They're just like they'll pull things for you, things that you wouldn't necessarily pull for yourself and help you um, pick it out. I just I love
So is that a local boutique,
yeah,
or are
it's
there
national.
stores lots of
Yeah, it's
yeah, I thought so. Ever Eve, is that what it is?
yes. Yeah.
Hmm. I think we have one of those in Indy.
Yes, we do. I want to say it might be out
Yes.
of based out of there.
Oh,
I could be
really?
wrong. I could be wrong.
I'll have to check that
Yes.
out. I'll have to check that out. I find that it's hard to, I don't know exactly where to shop these days because I don't want to shop where someone 20 years older than me is shopping. But also, I don't want to shop where someone 20 years younger than me is shopping. It's hard to know where the sweet spot of fashion is.
Yes, it is. It is. And that's why I feel like J. Crew has a lot of just classic pieces. I will go into Loft. My girls like Aritzia, which is kind of, it's definitely a younger crowd, but you can find some good classic pieces in there. And then sometimes just Nordstrom and Dillard's, just a classic department store, has some really great brands.
Gosh, I haven't been to Nordstrom's since 2019. And I used to love to go to Nordstrom's.
Why haven't you been?
Well, because I have to travel 2 hours to go to one, and I just don't shop. I just don't go to malls anymore. No. I have ordered some things online, but to go to an actual store.
No, it's so interesting. I grew up going to the mall on Saturdays, in elementary school. We used to get dropped off in Orlando at the mall. I'm like, what? Where are you?
Oh my gosh. Would you drop your girls off at Orlando at the mall and they were that age?
School. I think you'd probably be arrested for child abuse nowadays, child neglect. But yeah, that's what we did. And so I just, we went to the mall all the time. And my girls and I, we do love a day like down in Jacksonville, but they, are just content shopping online. And I'm like, well, where is the fun in that?
Yeah. I did hear the other day, somebody said that the younger generation is starting to want to go to a mall.
That's good.
And I also heard that kids that I get the generation names all mixed up, but maybe like even the generation below you is wanting a more traditional church service, and they're not as interested in the modern worship. And isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, I think the millennials are coming back. I think they're watching, I'm Generation X. I was just interesting. My husband's a baby boomer. I'm Generation X. My son is at the end of a millennial, and my girls are Gen Z. So one family, 4 generations.
That's interesting. I wonder, has your husband heard, because I had always thought I was a boomer too. And then I found out that people that are born on the tail end of what was considered the baby boomers are called the Jones generation. Because, it's something to do with after World War II and the Korean War, the soldiers came home and we weren't in war anymore. So it was more like keeping up with the Joneses. That's when that started. And society kind of changed, which that kind of makes perfect sense to me. But anyway, what are you reading now?
What am I reading? Oh, I'm reading. I have it right here. I'm a more of a nonfiction. Clean Up Your Mental Mess by Dr. Carolyn Lee.
Oh, okay. What are you enjoying about that?
It is very interesting, and it's going to get into. I'm just starting part 2, which is that she has a whole neurocycle, like a 5-step neurocycle that you can kind of learn to rewire your brain. It's all about neuroplasticity and how our brain can be rewired, which is like a newer phenomenon. Like,
yes,
and so the first half of the book is very sciencey. I underlined a whole lot, but it's really interesting. Like, she's done a lot of research in just proving like changing your thoughts, which we all know can change. We know it changes your emotions, it changes your action, but you really can rewire your brain to think differently, and therefore
we can be transformed by the renewing of our minds, just like Scripture says.
God tells us.
So good. So good. Well, Jeni, we are out of time.
It's been so fun.
Thank you so much for this. It was so fun to talk to you. I would like to talk about makeup and jewelry and purses too, but I think we'll have to save that for another time.
Definitely. When we're in person, we can pull it all out.
We'll share all that when we get together. Would you mind praying for our listeners?
Father God,
I would love that.
Father God, I thank you for this time that you've allowed Susan and I to share this afternoon, Lord. I thank you for all that she's doing for the women in this world, Lord. She has such a big impact and such a heart to serve and to lead and to love, Lord. We just thank you for all that she does, Lord. And I just pray for every woman that has listened to this podcast today. May they hear something that speaks to them, Lord, and that they know that it's from you. Like, may they just be encouraged to expand their capacity, get out of their comfort zone, follow you, look to you for guidance and encouragement, and to just live their life fully as you would have each one of us. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jeni. This has been really fun.
Yes.
And for all the listeners, I'm going to ask Jeni to send us all the links to everything that she's doing and all the fun things that she's up to and her Instagram and all that, so you can follow along. And I just pray that you just continue to bless everyone you meet, because you're just a little ray of sunshine.
You're so sweet. So are you, Susan.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Clean Heart Club podcast. I hope that you were blessed and learned some things that will help you on your journey. Let's remember this truth from Psalm 28:7. The Lord is my strength and shield. I trust him with all my heart. He helps me, and my heart is filled with joy. I burst out in songs of thanksgiving. Did you know I wrote a course for you? It's called the Clean Heart Club and contains 10 video teachings about some of my favorite life coaching concepts, which are so helpful. You're also invited to come join the fun in the Clean Heart Club group on Facebook and sign up to receive my weekly newsletter of encouragement. Let's be friends. See you next time.